Hello everybody, I'm Nate and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the newest quantum colliders. This is version 4 from Lathed Back Designs. It's in this little case here. Let's get into it. Before we get into this one, as I promised in the last review of the Ponder, the titanium Ponder, Lathed Back was kind enough to send me kind of a whole care package. I knew I was getting these, the quantum colliders, which we'll talk about as the main part of this review, but we also got the Ponder. But I didn't know he was going to be sending me all the other kind of extras that the site has. I'm not going to go in great detail, but just kind of give you a snapshot of what each of these things are. So let's start with the first thing that's in my hand. It's called a karambit, and I guess you would consider this a sort of trainer. And all these items, by the way, most of them are at least, are in this resin. It's got this sort of like fidgety kind of thing to it. If you look up karambits, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Anyways, but if you look up karambits, you'll find most of them are basically a knife kind of form of this, but have like a circular ending. So I'm not really sure how to do much of this. I'm glad that it is resin because I'm not going to cut myself because obviously I don't know what I'm doing. We have a couple other things here in resin. We have some coins here, and all these are kind of engraved with their, and kind of some paint in there of their daisy. Here are two different sizes of worry coins, manipulation coins, what have you. There's a nice little pocket there, nice and smooth. They're pretty light since they are resin, but they should get the job done as far as what you want for a worry coin, again, manipulation coin. So two different sizes, and the smaller one kind of stacks in and locks in really nicely there. There's a little channel there, and they kind of lay really nicely on top of each other. So those are those. Has a nice little fade there too, ever so slightly, and it's kind of one of those ones I didn't notice until we got outside here. And the last offering here in resin is these knucks, one single finger knucks, as they call them in the EDC world. And I don't have really any of these either. Obviously you can use this for self-defense or whatever, but I would probably use this more for just kind of fidgeting. You know, in case of an emergency, you know. It has a little lanyard on here as well, and kind of a mini version of the knuck as well here. All right, so nice little fade on there. Again, it has the Daisy logo. This time it doesn't have the paint in there, so it doesn't pop as much as some of the others. But yeah, nice. Those are the resin options. And then one last thing that he sent me as well. He sent me a couple of the Ranger eyes. So these are, if you know this channel, you've seen these because I make these as well. And anyways, but it has their sort of mascot here, and these came out really clean, and yeah, they're really nice. So I have a couple of these here, and I'll be throwing that on anything that's Velcro. All right, let's get into the review. As usual with Lathed Back Designs, I've talked about this before. They have these little nice 3D printed cases. So this one is a nice little slide top here, nice bright colors. And in here we have the Quantum Colliders version 4. It came with a spare piece of paracord, so this is 550 paracord, and a nice little place to put that there if you want to store that, or just kind of have a nice little spot for it, either on a desk or in your pocket or in your bag or what have you. But pretty straightforward there. Here are the Quantum Colliders version 4. I've reviewed all of the Quantum Colliders from the very beginning, right? So if you are unfamiliar with these at all, I would encourage you to go check out my review on those. But the idea here is to kind of blend Begleri and kendama a little bit, right? And I know that kind of seems like it might not fit, but the central idea here is to kind of do catches like so, which, you know, with these ones, you can do a catch like that, right? Because you have these sort of, and I've talked about this with the last two, version 2 and version 3, have a similar sort of this kind of honeycomb end here, and you can kind of land in different ways. So why is there a version 4? Now there is some influence obviously from 2 and 3, but this is a complete redesign according to them. And so I did bring out version 2 and 3 just to kind of do a brief comparison. So I have, this is version 2, right? This is in the plain. These are all titanium, by the way, all 3 of these. And then version 3 here is the one that's got some anodization on it. Let's talk about these ends first, like the actual cup end. One thing I've noticed is that the end here right? This part here is a little bit more angular. And so, I mean, honestly, you could probably do some tricks if you're really, really good. Like maybe where you're, I don't know, maybe not. But yeah, okay. You could, with a lot of effort and precision, you could probably do some tricks where you're landing it even in that space there. I would like to see that. If you don't follow Russell, by the way, and I've mentioned him in the reviews for these before, I have a link in the description where you can follow him on Instagram. That's where I follow him. I think he's on TikTok and all these other ones as well. But I would highly recommend, if you want to see somebody who's very, very good at these, and just in general a really good skilled toy player in the first place. But anyways, give him a follow. I would highly recommend you watching him play these, because I am not nearly as qualified or as many as hours as he has put in. So anyways, shout out to him. So yeah, that's the first thing there. And then the actual cup itself, it's a little bit larger. Now overall, the weight's just a little bit bumped up on both of these. It is symmetrical as far as, well, it's asymmetrical rather, but the weight is symmetrical on all of these, right? But this is at 9.5, so it's a little bit heftier than on the previous one. So it's going to give a little bit more momentum. And I think for some of those tricks, I think that's going to be beneficial for a lot of people. Playing with these overall, I don't know. It's kind of hard to pick what would be my favorite, and maybe because it is fresh and it's a little bit newer, I do find playing with version 4 for somebody who's not nearly as skilled and has not spent as many hours with this type of Begleri, that this is actually the most beneficial, and I think this is my favorite. So I will just put that out there as a personal take, okay? But yeah, the ends here, again, this is version 2, and it's like, I know it's maybe hard to see on camera, but it is substantially larger in diameter. It's a little bit closer to the version 3, but overall it is just a little bit bigger. Now the other end, like the honeycomb end, again, kind of just a little bit bigger overall. And there are some just basic details here. I think the edges are a little bit sharper here as well, and they can lock in a little bit easier. So not just those tricks where you're landing like just in the pocket like that, like square, but you're actually kind of doing some more stalls. It's going to land a little bit easier. Even on my kind of last section here, it lands really nice and kind of just locks right in there. So these ends just kind of match, I think, just a little bit better than version 3. Version 3 for me was kind of like stepping it into the right direction of what you could possibly do with the quantum colliders, because I think really the first like version really was just kind of like an experiment, like, will this even work at all? And they obviously did. And so, well, how far can you push it? And so it's really cool to see that they've kept going back to the drawing board and that they've redesigned this one. A little bit more heft, all that to say, a little bit larger and a little easier to kind of lock in those little, you know, those little stall moments, right, that you can have with these. All right, let's go ahead and flip the camera around, and we'll play these a little bit and talk a little bit more about the Quantum Colliders version 4. All right. Welcome back here, everybody. As I said in the first half of this video, that each side is just a little bit larger compared to the previous versions. It's a little bit heavier than the last version at 9.5, so you're going to get a little bit more momentum as well. But I think the biggest difference here is that the actual cuts in each side are a little bit more refined, so that you can do a little bit more of those stall points. So if this is sort of your first like introduction to this type of Begleri, right, and you're a little bit hesitant because you're like, well, that's another learning curve, you know, which I understand that, right? If you're like, I feel like I'm learning a new skill toy almost altogether, and that might be true a little bit, right? And these might be a little bit intimidating, but I feel like this might be the best version to go for. Now, first off, I don't believe the other versions are in stock, so you'd have to probably get them secondhand, and I don't know if they're going to be releasing anymore. But the reality is, I think because of some of those updated additions to it, that it just makes landing and kind of finding those pockets and all that kind of thing that you want, you know, want to showcase on this kind of Begleri, I think it's just a little easier. So I feel like you're going to have a little bit less of a headache. So if you're familiar with just Begleri play in general, I think you're going to really kind of find these ones a little bit easier. You know, maybe. It's still challenging. I'm gonna stand by this comment. I think these still are maybe the best ones as sort of a gateway into this kind of Begleri. So if you've not checked out quantum colliders before, you've seen them. If you're a Begleri player, especially, you've probably seen these. Maybe you've been hesitant of picking them up because they are different and they're not just novelty. I feel like there is a lot of potential for these, and because of just some of the improvements, especially with some of those angles and the precision and some of the design, I think it's just a little bit easier to kind of hit in those pocket and those catches. I think you're going to really like these ones. So if you've not given the quantum colliders a shot, this just might be the one that you need to. I'll have a link, of course, in the description where you can find out all things about Lathed Back Designs, where you can find these, as well as all the other things that I've now thrown on the ground that I talked about in the video as well, as far as some of those extras and collectibles. I believe they are under collectibles on their site. All right, that's going to do it for my review of the Quantum Colliders version 4, all right, from Lathed Back Designs. If you like this kind of content, make sure you like, subscribe, and all the things that you're supposed to do on the old YouTubes. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.